Have you ever gone golfing with Aubrey or a girl or like a girlfriend or anything?
I haven't gone golfing, like official golfing. Like I've taken Aubrey golfing, like my wife golfing with me and Jeff, but she was just there and she hit a ball or two, but it didn't slow us down. I refuse. It's like what's that? I love you, man. This is
Yeah.
my nightmare.
This is my nightmare.
Literally, it is
Yes.
my nightmare. I will not do that shit like at all.
Yeah. So this past weekend, I just took my new wife with new wife, and didn't golf or anything. Literally, second shot, started talking in my backswing. Had the nerve to blame me for having a bad shot. So, yeah, that's my new thing. From now on, I'm golfing with my friends, and I'm just drinking afterwards, and then I'll see my wife afterwards, and
You
let's
should
just get loaded.
you should poke her in the front hole.
All right, all right. Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first because we finish last. Fucking Matthew McConaughey out here with the all rights.
Yeah, I gotta do it. Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast. This is Ben Morgan, that is DJ Primo, and we are back. We're a few days late. We had some technical difficulties that we're working through, so please just put up with us for a couple of more weeks. We'll get this shit figured out yet. But we are doing our fantasy football rankings, wide receivers 1 through 12. And DJ, I've got to ask you before we get started here. This is pretty much the last fantasy preview rankings episode that you're really going to be a contributor to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say what we're gonna talk about next because it's not a word that I use, or it's not a words combined that I use together. So, this will be a fun one. I'll show up for the next one, but I mean, mentally won't be there at all.
The show must go on, and DJ can't say it, so I will. We will talk about fantasy football tight ends. However, DJ just doesn't want to say the word, so he'll pop in here and there, but it should be a fun episode regardless. Before we get started, though, with some fantasy receivers that we're ranking 1 through 12, talking about whether or not we're targeting or avoiding them, I want to talk about our newest podcast sponsor. It's Squad QL. Do you want an unfair advantage to dominate your fantasy league? Well, look no further and download Squad QL, the only mobile app you need to crush your friends and rivals this year. Squad QL recommends the best starting lineup for you each week based on your starters, bench players, and the free agent pool. You may ask, how the hell does Squad QL actually do this? Well, the app connects directly to your Yahoo, ESPN, or CBS league, pulling in your actual roster and your league scoring system, and then Squad QL provides waiver and trade recommendations. Plus, the app gives you player rankings each week, and it's all based on your league's settings. They're truly the go-to app this fantasy football season, so make sure you head to squadql.com, download the app, and your all-in-one fantasy football manager. It's brought to you by the creators of RotoQL, the leading daily fantasy lineup optimizer, trusted by over 100,000 daily fantasy players, including DJ and myself. Dude, are you pumped up for daily fantasy season or what?
I'm chubbing right now. I'm ready to stick my ding dong in some front holes. That's all I know.
There you go. Well, make sure you download RotoQL for free, both Apple and Android. And without further ado, DJ, are you ready to close out your portion of the fantasy football preview ranking season?
Let's get it done.
All right, let's get it done. I'll start with my receivers, and we'll go through yours, and then we'll talk about them. Number 12, I've got Doug Baldwin. Number 11, Adam Thielen. Number 10, you're going to hear this name because you heard it last episode. It's T.Y. Hilton. Number 9, Mike Evans. Number 8, Devontae Adams. Number 7, Keenan Allen. Number 6, A.J. Green. 5, Michael Thomas. 4, Julio Jones. 3, Odell Beckham Jr., 2, Nuke Hopkins, and 1, Antonio Brown.
It's a beautiful thing. I missed like half of those because you're choppy, but I'm ready to go. I can see it on the on the paper. So moving on to my top 12, right?
Yep.
So the first one I'm going to say is going to be weird because if you listen to the last one, I had him at number 13. I recently moved Alshon Jeffrey out of there due to him being a pussy. So T.Y. Hilton now moves up to number 12. Number 11, Josh Gordon. Number 10, Doug Baldwin. 9, Mike Evans. A lot of ours are going to sound similar.
Very similar today.
8, Julio Jones. 7, Keenan Allen. 6, A.J. Green. 5, Michael Thomas. 4, Odell Beckham Jr. 3, Antonio Brown. 2, DeAndre Hopkins. And number 1, I think I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh, I was ready for the drum roll and everything. We'll make them wait in suspense, and we will get to that. But for right now, let's talk about my
People
number.
are going to be pissed. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah, you're going to get some hate.
Hate.
You've already gotten hate, to be honest.
I'm going to get all the hate.
Yes. So my number 12 is Doug Baldwin, currently going as the 11th pick in the third round. That's wide receiver 13. I think that's properly ranked. Wilson's passing touchdowns have been legit, and Baldwin always seems to get his share. And I think Baldwin might even see a little bit of a bump now that Jimmy Grant's not there to target that in the end zone. The big thing with Baldwin right now is you just need to watch his injury. It doesn't sound like he's going to go at all in preseason, but the team seems pretty likely that he'll be ready by week 1. If you're confident in that, he may actually drop some, in my opinion, with no preseason action. So maybe you get him mid-4th round, which I think would be a steal. I would actually target him in the mid-4th if I could. I don't mind him on my team. I just feel a little bit more confident usually with a different wide receiver as my wide receiver 1. But I feel like this is the story every single year with Baldwin. He typically performs at that level that warrants his ADP, but yet we always kind of like slight him.
Doug Baldwin is, I don't know if you saw today, but they said they're like for sure he's going to be playing in week 1. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Doug Baldwin this year. I've always kind of ignored him, but he consistently finishes in the top wide receiver tier. Every year since 2015, he's finished equal to or higher than wide receiver 13, and as high as 6th. This year, going into 2018, this team has no run game.
0 run game.
A bad offensive line.
Bad offensive line.
Really bad defense. Like, just non-existent defense. Everybody's gone from that defense. And the one wide receiver, they lost Jimmy Graham, as you said. He's the one wide receiver out there. They're going to throw the ball a ton because they're going to have to. They're going to be behind. Russell's going to be running. Doug Baldwin's going to be running. And then they're going to throw it to each other. Maybe Baldwin will throw it back to him. But honestly, I can easily see Doug Baldwin finishing as a top 5 wide receiver. Like, I would not be surprised if he finishes a top 5 wide receiver. I want all shares of Doug Baldwin.
Where did you have him ranked again?
I had him ranked at number 10.
You got him 10. Nice.
Did you say his ADP?
Yeah, last pick of the 3rd round.
Last pick of the 3rd round. So if you can get him, I'm seeing him going in 4th rounds.
Yeah.
That is incredible because he is so consistent. And I mean, with Tyreek Hill going ahead of him, and that amazes me. But this guy, like I said, he constantly finishes in like the wide receiver 1s this year, more than any year.
Right.
It should be a year that you're most excited about him because he's like the one guy that Russell really has to throw to, and they're going to throw more than they ever have. It's going to be like the Lions, how much the Lions throw.
Yeah, I kind of like him as well. I like that analysis. He is, I think it's his 30-year-old season now, and he has that little bit of injury, but I don't think that 30-year-old season hits receivers near the way that it does running backs. So
I think it's like 33.
Yeah, no fear. You give the receivers an extra 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So my number 11 guy is Adam Thielen, who I noticed that you didn't say his name this episode or the last episode when we talked wide receivers 13 through 24. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you said, or going to say, I should say. But he's my 11th ranked receiver. He's currently the 14th ranked receiver going as the last pick in the 3rd round. That's probably properly ranked in my opinion. I'm probably a little bit high on him. But when you look at Thielen, he doesn't drop passes. He turns some average plays into big plays. And he should see a bump in targets along with the other receivers on that team now that Cousins is there. I do think that Stephon Diggs is all around a better receiver than Thielen. But I actually like Thielen a little bit more because I think you're going to see Diggs catching a lot of the top cornerback on opposing teams. Whereas Thielen is really close in talent and could garner that top corner, but he probably won't. So if you're getting a guy like Thielen in the late third or early fourth, he should catch a ton of balls. He should eclipse 1,000 yards. And touchdowns are going to be a little bit of a wild card there with a new quarterback. But I don't really see a scenario where you're going to be disappointed taking Thielen late third, early fourth.
Yeah, the thing with Thielen and the Minnesota Vikings is I'm just not confident in Kirk Cousins as a quarterback, guy who struggles in the red zone, a team that I think is going to play to their strength, which is defense and run the ball. I think that'll take away his confidence. I just don't think they're going to throw as much, and it's going to be as explosive as what everybody's going to think. I just think you're going to see a downtick. I mean, they had almost no injuries this year. I don't like to predict injuries, but you don't typically get, or last year, you don't typically get no injuries. So I just think the whole team is trending downwards in general. I did have Stephon Diggs in that top, in the 24 to 13 range, but I only think one guy's going to get there. I think he's going to be the main guy, the guy making all the big flashy plays. I think you're going to see a downtick. People aren't going to be like, they're going to be aware of Adam Thielen on the field now. He's not going to take anyone by surprise at this point, but I just think with Kirk Cousins, I think he's going to struggle. I think the Vikings overall are going to downtick. It's going to be a different year than last year, and I see the whole team dramatically regressing. So.
Don't you think that if Keenum, who a guy that you publicly don't like as a football quarterback, don't you think if he can support two fantasy receivers that Cousins should easily be able to do that? I know he's struggled with touchdowns and everything, but this team is probably the most talented team he's been on.
I just think he's a more down the. I think Cousins is a more down the field thrower, where Case Keenum was, kind of like the play action, first look, more accurate, short to medium range. And that's why you saw Thielen higher than Stephon Diggs last year. I think you'll see a little switch in that, and who gets more targets this year based on that quarterback. I think you're going to see Cousins obviously taking a few more shots than that, but obviously loved, Jamison Crowder and his tight ends. And yeah, I mean, you're going to see Kyle Rudolph probably take an uptick as well, and I think that can affect Adam Thielen as well, because he does love his tight end. So,
well, man, based on who your number one receiver is, and based on not having Adam Thielen in your top 24,
I love it.
Man, you could get some mad hate here.
That's fine.
All right, so at number 10, I talked about him last week. It's T.Y. Hilton. I did a couple of updates to my rankings. His ADP is boosted up. He's now the third pick in the third round. Wide receiver 10, that's exactly where I have him ranking. I talked about it last week. He's not a huge touchdown guy, but man, he's awesome with yards. He's got that unique ability to put up huge weeks. That's going to put you over the top. Hilton is an awesome receiver if your league pays out like weekly top scores.
Yep.
I also think that you got to play the opposite of that, though. Sometimes if you have a boom guy, he's going to have some bust weeks. He's kind of like a little Tyreek Hill there. You're going to have some clunkers. But personally, if you can get into your draft and go first-round running back, second-round running back, and come back with Hilton in the third as your leading receiver, I am not mad at your strategy. And the only way this really falls apart is if Luck ends up not being totally back. But we don't really have a ton of reason to believe that's going to be the case. So, yeah, I talked about Hilton last week, but I've officially moved him up to number 10.
Yeah, and Hilton is skyrocketing, and for good reason. I was already on Hilton before the Andrew Luck, so maybe I should have done drafts like a month ago.
You should have, yeah, for that
I was so confident T.Y. that I was ready to take him before everybody else, because now his ADP is just skyrocketing.
Oh, yeah.
He's at 3.03 now, going wide receiver 10. I think you said that. I love him. I think he's probably rated at this point, because with Andrew Luck, he's just a weapon. Like, I'm not worried about down weeks, because he's really the only wide receiver he has. He's the one guy he's on, besides Jack Doyle, who's not going to, blow people out of the water, but he's the one guy that he can really rely on in that wide receiver core, and he's going to throw the ball downfield. So I'm not worried about up and down weeks from T.Y. Hilton. I was going to go back. I accidentally X'd out a page and look at his last year with a healthy Andrew Luck, which I don't even fucking know what year that was.
It was nasty, though. He had like 7 or 8 touchdowns. He had, I think it was over 1,200 yards. Like, the numbers were there. He's had a great career with Luck. It's just the touchdowns have been a little bit low. And you hit it on the head. Like, what other receiver is going to steal targets from him? You basically have the tight ends and Doyle, maybe Ebron. I'm not really scared of him at all. And the good thing is, there's so much cluster in that backfield right now that the combination of all those guys should be able to get it done. So they're not just going to be this one-trick pony passing team. They should be able to have a little bit of balance, and I think that's what's going to help out T.Y. Hilton with some play action down the field.
Yeah, I saw some. So the last year he had an unhealthy Andrew Luck in 2016. He finished as the number 5 wide receiver.
Yeah.
He has 6 touchdowns, but 1,448 yards. I think he was second in yards. Did he lead yards over Julio that year? I think he led the league in yards that year.
I think he did. But he put up those kind of numbers with 6
Julio
touchdowns.
by about 40 yards.
That's the craziest thing. He's doing that without being touchdown dependent.
Yeah. So
if the
I
touchdowns
think those touchdowns will uptick just because he is now the only wide receiver in that offense. I'm looking for those numbers again. I'm looking for that back. And that's with Andrew Luck not healthy. He basically had that torn shoulder that entire year.
Right.
And watching Andrew Luck the other night, it reminded me, it was been a long time, but I got a little bit of chills because that throwing motion looks the exact same, where he kind of I don't know, it's tucked behind his ear and it looks funky, but he does it well. It hasn't changed. It gets me excited.
Yeah, it definitely is his patented style. There's no doubt in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have faith. If you can go running back Hilton, I like it. So, yeah, he's my number 10. My number 9 is Mike Evans. He's actually going as wide receiver 9, second pick, third round. He dropped in my most recent rankings, but I do think that around wide receiver 9 is perfect for Evans. The Bucs can be legit if they can get a run game going, but I don't like the idea of having one quarterback for 4 weeks. You start to build this chemistry, your team forms an identity, maybe you win a couple of games, and then all of a sudden you got to go to this normal quarterback. And I'm not saying that Winston shouldn't be the starter regardless of what happens those first 4 weeks. I just like the idea of a stability at the quarterback position rather than having these multiple quarterbacks playing in the first 4 weeks. But, man, there's no denying Evans is one of those receivers that has that 1,500-yard, 12-touchdown potential. And as a third-rounder, dude, you cannot write him off regardless of who's playing quarterback. No. I think the Winston suspension affected his ADP appropriately. I think 9 is right there. I'm not necessarily going to jump up to target him, but not going to avoid him if he falls to me either.
Yeah, Mike Evans is a frustrating character for me because I drafted him at number 7 or 6 last year. And it was a disappointing season. It was a frustrating year, yet he still finished at, and you take this with a lot of wide receivers, but you don't want to take this with a Mike Evans, but he still finished as wide receiver 20, 1,000 yards, just over 1,000, 5 touchdowns.
Right.
That was a bad year for him. And that's because we expect a lot more, So I expect those touchdowns to go by, and I'm giving this as a very minimum of 3 touchdowns. That's 8 touchdowns. I'll take 8 touchdowns and 1,000 yards out of him, but I expect those yards to go up as well. But at the very minimum, he's going to go up by 3 touchdowns. He's way too talented, way too big. He's like the main, he's just an overall freak of a wide receiver, as you see with these top tiers in general. So I don't care really who's at quarterback. This year, with Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston, I think that he's going to bounce back from that slump and get back to the 2 years ago thing that got me so excited last year.
Right. Oh, I went for it as well, man. I definitely went for it. So what I was going to ask you about that, so sometimes you look at a team and say, okay, they've got all these weapons, but it's good because they can't focus on a guy. Or you can say, well, he's the only weapon, that's all the defense can take it away. With Evans, you've got Deshaun Jackson and Chris Godwin. You've got a rookie running back in Rojo. And then you also have 2 tight ends that are going to be taking targets. So do you think Evans is in a situation where it helps him to have those kind of playmakers, or because they have all these people that might hurt him a little bit?
When I get to this tier of wide receivers where I'm going right now, I really don't care who's surrounding them, whether they're by themselves, kind of like an Odell Beckham a couple or 2-3 years ago, who's going to put up those numbers, or a Calvin Johnson kind of by himself. Or if they have people surrounding them, you're still gonna find ways to get open. They're gonna find ways to get you open. They're gonna find ways to get you ball. And when you've been in the league for that long, you're gonna find holes in defenses because they're not gonna be playing man on you. They're gonna try to play zone coverage with some help on the bottom or top and on the bottom, and you're gonna find holes in areas that you can get into. When you're talented, it's because you can. You're big, fast, you're smart. You find holes. You're on the same level as your quarterback. There's a lot of different things, so I really don't care who's out there for weapons. I would expect him to succeed no matter what. These guys in this top tier.
Yeah. My number 8 guy moving on here is the one we shall not mention. So, due to requests from DJ, we'll move on to number 7 for the time being, who is Keenan Allen, going as the 8th pick in the second round. That's wide receiver 7. I'm a huge fan of Allen. I definitely think he's properly ranked. Allen has been a great fantasy football producer when he's been healthy. So if that Chargers curse can just avoid him, please let it avoid him.
Yeah.
I think Keenan Allen could finish anywhere from like wide receiver 4 to wide receiver 12. And I don't really see him finishing outside of that top 12 in that Chargers offense with Phillip Rivers, who I predict to have just a really good year. And then put on top of that, you got Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, both out of that division. So that equals more games not seeing some top-level cornerbacks. Mid-second for a guy like Keenan Allen is perfect for him. I'm buying him. Please don't let that Chargers injury bug touch him, because I think he could have a monster year.
So for Keenan Allen, I love him as well. I have him, I think, one spot above you here. You finally got to see the potential. You know, you finally got to see what we've been waiting for before his spleen explodes or he gets some other freak injury.
Right.
You finished as wide receiver 3 last year, Ben, and you just put him between 4 and 12. He started off the year about as slow as you can, and then as he got comfortable with Phillip Rivers, and they did, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. And he started off real slow. I think week 4 he had a 13-point week, and then it was still slow for a while, and then boom, he just kind of busts out with some 20-point weeks and shoots up. That's just going to continue to stay at that level, the 20-point level. I mean, he can finish anywhere in the top 12. I'm not going to max his potential out at 4 when he finished number 3 with 6 touchdowns and like 1,400 yards or something like that. I think he can go. I think he can go higher. He started off so slow,
Yeah,
and I expect that to be much better this year, because they were just kind of getting the groove, because you never got to see him play a full season.
I put him there just because of the fact that, I mean, you got Odell Beckham coming back basically after missing a big portion of the year. And there's another guy I'm going to talk about who I expect to really crush it this year. So that's why I put him at that 4 level. I'll talk about that a little bit later.
I'm just not going to max him out. And I also I had him ranked number, and I think I said this, but I had him ranked number. You have him at 8, I have him at 7.
I think I had him at 7 as well.
Oh.
Yep, so double 7. But my number 6 guy is A.J. Green. He's actually going as the 10th pick in the second round, wide receiver 8. I think that's properly ranked. A.J. Green, we say it all the time, he's the quiet, unsexy pick that'll put up super consistent numbers every single week. We all know his 1,000 yard in every season beside the one that he get hurt in stat. And there's no reason to believe he doesn't finish around 1,200 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. And those numbers late in the second round, that's a no-brainer to me. I would take A.J. Green. I've had him before. I've never felt unstoppable like when I've had Green on my fantasy team. But he's literally never disappointed me or made me think he wasn't worthy of where I took him. And if you're getting him in the late second, early third, you're getting 1,200 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. It's not the sexy pick. It's not the boom pick. Man is super consistent. I will take him again.
You know, it's hilarious, and I love this because I think he's underrated, because he is the most consistent wide receiver in the NFL for like the last 5 years, going at 2.10. If I have the last pick, which I do, if I have the last pick in the first round and I have back-to-back and I don't like all the running backs that fell off the board and I see 2 wide receivers I love, A.J. Green is going to potentially be one of those guys I'm willing to take. Yeah. I really am. Like, I'm confident in his abilities and his consistency. So even when he's not healthy, he's putting up 900-something yards and a bunch of touchdowns.
With Dalton.
What?
With Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and the thing about Andy is, like, he's not terrible. He's just not great. So you know that he's going to still, like, he's going to produce with AJ, or he's going to get the ball to AJ Green, and they're going to produce together. So that's not a worry of mine. Yeah. I almost prefer to keep Andy Dalton there, so I don't have to worry about some new fucking quarterback coming in and messing it up. So just keep Andy Dalton there with them, so they can continue that consistency, because he's going to keep throwing the ball.
Right.
Really underrated to me. If you're getting him at the end of the second round, or beginning of the third, steal. Yeah. It's just a steal, because I'd be willing to take him at the beginning of the first round, or beginning of the second round, end of the first.
Right. Yeah, I mean, maybe not quite that high, but it's just that thing about...
I would.
It's I believe it's kind of like A.J. Green is to receivers what Melvin Gordon is to running backs. Like Melvin Gordon's been really good outside of his scoreless touchdown drought his rookie year. But he can carry your running back squad, and A.J. Green can do the same thing for your receivers. He just gets such disrespect, and I think it's because you have like these big names who are in the commercials with their faces everywhere, and they dance before games and they make one-handed catches, and A.J. Green's just not that guy.
Catches.
Well, I mean like in warm-ups, like with a headband on and Dre Beats by Dre. Man, I'm white.
Yeah.
All right, enough of A.J. Green. Let's go on to number 5. For me, that is Michael Thomas of the Saints. He's actually ADP of 2.05, wide receiver 5. I think that's properly ranked, obviously, because I have him ranked 5th. I wouldn't mind Thomas, but he's not a player I'm really targeting. You know he's definite top receiver target for Drew Brees. But if the team continues to go the way of the running backs, which they did last year, that's going to drop Thomas's targets and his touchdowns. Also, if the other wide receivers on that team don't step up, probably Cam Meredith, and he's going through a little bit of injury stuff with himself as well, I'd be a little bit nervous that you're asking Mike Thomas to do a little bit too much. Mike Thomas is one of those players, and we've talked about this before, and I don't remember if you agree with me or disagree on this, but I actually like Michael Thomas more as an actual NFL player than I do in fantasy this year.
No, I don't agree.
Okay, why?
I mean, because when Drew Brees finds a guy that's his favorite wide receiver, that guy is good for a few years. He's one of those quarterbacks that when you get a top guy that he likes, he's going to produce no matter like what. And they're not going to throw as much, but when they do, it's going to go to Michael Thomas. So, I mean, he only finished with 5 touchdowns last year. He's literally the only guy I'm confident in the pass game. Like, their tight ends suck. What is it, Benjamin Watson?
Right. But that's the thing, though. It's
Cameron
like
Meredith, who I'm not sure about and doesn't have any like connection with Ted Ginn Jr. I know you love him, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
his whole family.
Michael Thomas he's the top guy to Drew Brees, and he's going to get him the ball, and they're going to find ways to get him the ball because he's their guy. He's the guy that can produce. Sean Payton's not going to not let him get the ball, and Drew Brees is going to make sure they find ways to get him the ball. And you're going to see an uptick in his touchdowns. He only had 5 freaking touchdowns last year.
I know, that's the
so
bad
you're going to
thing.
see more in the red zones.
So maybe that's a good thing. I mean, if you believe in like a bounce back year, you pick the guy, you kind of buy low. I mean, he had a good fantasy year. Yeah, he still had some nice catches and yards, but the touchdowns weren't there. So yeah, he could finish great. I'm just a little bit nervous about that whole changing of the guard. You're sort of the one that talked me into that. Like Drew Brees isn't asked to be Drew Brees anymore. He's asked to be like a toned down version of himself, where if he needs to do it and the game's on the line, he'll get it done. But
Correct.
The offense just seems to run a little bit smoother, and if they can play ball control and get those running backs going, man, they looked awesome last year.
Yeah, but when you when you do throw the ball, it's going to be like. It's going to be Michael Thomas for the most part. I
can't argue that.
Sean Hill had Kelvin Johnson scoring 15 touchdowns a year, but he was a garbage quarterback outside of that. I mean, Drew Brees is obviously better than Sean Hill. I'm not trying to make the comparison, but they are going to run the ball. You're not going to see the numbers as high for Brees, but that one top wide receiver that he is throwing it to is still going to put up those consistently good numbers because he's going to be his most trusted source out there.
Where did you have Thomas ranked?
I had same spot. I mean, we're the exact
Same
same
at 5?
ranking
Okay.
up till this point. So I have him ranked 5.
Gotcha.
So we're at the same spot.
Okay.
The last 5 have been the
Yeah,
same.
they
So
have.
4 and 5.
Really close anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 4 is Julio Jones, going as the second pick in the second round. That's wide receiver 4. I was actually surprised that Julio is going this high based on all the negativity that I've seen with people like on Twitter and social media, fantasy football community, saying about how he's going to start dropping in fantasy ranks from now on. But I'm on the total opposite side of that fence. I am not agreeing with that at all. I would absolutely target Julio here. I see people with A.J. Green, Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, all of those kind of guys ahead of Julio. And I hope that happens in my draft so that I can get Julio in the mid-second. Everyone's beef with Julio is touchdowns haven't been huge throughout his career. But you know what? That's never really stopped Julio from being a legit wide receiver one. And one of my bold predictions this year, I don't know if we're going to do a bold prediction episode or not, but he's getting double-digit touchdowns this year. And
Jesus.
He's once again going to be talked about as one of the best wide receivers in the game.
This fucking guy.
I am a Julio believer. You cannot talk me out of it. Man, I want to have him higher. I just don't want to be too crazy with it. But, man, I'm all in on Julio. Love that ADP.
Do you know who I'm not a believer in?
Matt Ryan.
Matt fucking Ryan. All right, I was a Matt Ryan fan my beginning of my career, but then he just consistently let me down. Consistently let me down. And he puts up one big year. Everybody's got his ding dongs in their back holes, and
frontal
then he
and
bounces
a back
back
hole
and does what he
reference.
does, and only those three touchdowns of Julio Jones this year. I don't trust Matt Ryan any further than I can throw that fat fuck. I'm done with him. I'm done. I can't wait for his ass. I hope he tears his ACL or something. I don't know. I don't want to wish that upon anybody. But I'm done with Matt Ryan. It makes me down on Julio Jones. I'm never going to be... I can't be up on Julio Jones. Obviously, he's a top 10 wide receiver, okay? I think he's going to be up there.
Top 2.
A top 10 fantasy wide receiver.
Okay.
But I don't want to put him in that top 5 range or whatever. I have him at 8.
You have him at 8?
I just don't trust it. Yeah. Because I don't think his yards are going to be the same. And I think his yards are going to drop, and I think his touchdowns are going to be 3 or 4 again. I don't trust Matt Ryan. This guy is garbage. I just don't like him.
I don't think Matt Ryan jumps back to 2 years ago MVP form with the 35 or 33 touchdowns, whatever he had. But I find it hard to believe that in year 2 of Sarkisian's offense, that they can't resemble a little bit of what they had under Kyle Shanahan. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a repeat of that. That offense was knocking out 30 points a game. We might not see that, but man, another offense with another year in that offense with those playmakers, adding Calvin Ridley to the mix. I really like that team. I like that division, but man, I just don't see it how Julio Jones doesn't have another monster year with his yards. They're always there. And if anyone's due for a breakout in touchdowns, it's Julio Jones, and I'm buying in on it.
And you bring up one more thing. That drunk fucker calling plays on the offense, give me a fucking break. That guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's just going to find the coolest name on there, the whitest guy, and he's going to be give him the ball.
That's Austin Hooper.
I don't trust any drunk people out there. He already fucked up at USC where they're paying all the players. If you're fucking up because you're too drunk there, you can't be an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Give me a break. I don't trust that drunk piece of shit. That guy's drunk right now.
That should be the new thing. You have to blow a certain blood alcohol in order to be an offensive coordinator on every Sunday. I like it. All right, so he's your number 8.
Yep.
Wow, breaking news. All right, so let's go on to my number 3, which is...
You could have gone to our rankings on loadedboxpodcast.com, gone to wide receivers, and seen that I had an 8 next to his name.
I didn't want to ruin it. Spoiler alert.
So it's not breaking news.
All right, well, my number 3 is Odell Beckham Jr. He's currently going as the first pick in the second round. It's wide receiver 3. I think that's properly ranked. Honestly, if you can go best running back available, and then you can come back with OBJ early in the second, that will definitely be a draft strategy that I would take if I'm at the end of the order right there. He gets the catches, he gets the yards, and so far in his career, the touchdowns have been there too, man. That guy just racks up double-digit touchdowns. Consistent score, plus he's going to get boom weeks. And you look at the Giants, now everyone knows, OBJ, Saquon, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard. I see Evan Ingram's numbers decreasing now that OBJ is back, and an actual threat at running back can maybe make OBJ even better by taking away some of that defensive attention. I think OBJ right now, from what I've seen anyway, looks perfectly fine after that injury. I don't think you have anything to worry about there. I actually thought about moving him up to number 2, but right now I'm gonna keep him where he is for the time being. But I would say early in the second round, you draft OBJ with confidence.
Yeah, I love OBJ. So if I have the option to get him there at that last pick with another wide receiver that I'm going to talk about, because I know I have the chance to get him there, I'm jumping all over it.
Yeah.
No hesitation in that game. Not much to say about him. I mean, he's Odell Beckham Jr. So what can I say that you don't know? I don't want to be ridiculed. But speaking of OBJ, in case you haven't signed up yet, make sure you get qualified to win an Odell Beckham Jr. autographed mini helmet that we got. make sure you're following us on Twitter. This is how you qualify. Follow us on Twitter, @LoadedBox. Find the tweet with the details of the contest. Retweet that tweet, and then tag a friend to get entered to win. We teamed up with Pristine Auction for this giveaway, so make sure you're following them as well. They have daily auctions packed with tons of stuff for the man cave. You should see my man cave. It's full of Pristine Auction shit. I bask in it. I love it. They guarantee their items as they all come with certificates of authenticity. What a tough word for me. From only the trusted sources. It's also affordable. I mean, I'm dirt poor and I'm getting shit off there. I mean, I'm scraping money to get it and I can still afford it. And most people don't think they can afford it, but it's much more affordable than you think. Wow. It's quick and free to register, free to bid. You only pay when you win. And make sure you mention the Loaded Box podcast in the How Did You Hear About Us section when you register. Head over to pristineauction.com. That's Pristine, Pristine, auction.com. God, I'm fucking natural.
Yeah, I thought maybe you would have like end it with 2 letters rather than ending it with 1 letter with the E there. But other than that, man, you're good at reading. You can read.
I just kind of brought it how I felt there. I was really excited about doing a read today. So,
well, as DJ said,
leave your reviews on iTunes, on Google Play. Let me know how my read was, because I think it was probably the best you've ever heard.
And if you leave a review, what do you get?
You fucking get another entry for the Odell Beckham Jr. helmet.
Get another entry, so you can double up. A lot of people have already done that so far. So yeah, we're doing that drawing on Labor Day, I think it is, at our draft. So we'll be good and lubricated by then. We'll do it on Twitter Live. It should be a blasty blast. We
have one guy following us. I'm not going to say his name, but he is all over our dicks about this Odell.
He wants to win.
Man, I hope he's a true follower after this, no matter what, because I enjoy it. I like it, but he is just on our ass. I don't want him to go away after we give it away. I mean, he may win, but I'm not going to just give it to him.
I know, but we don't want anyone going away. Hopefully you like our content. Hopefully you keep coming back for more. And we'll do more giveaways moving forward.
You know who we're talking about. We'll send you an autographed picture of me and Ben if you don't win the helmet.
And if you don't believe us, ask our friends at Beer Fueled Fantasy. We will do it.
Yeah, dicks out.
And we'll send you $4.
Busch Light, baby.
All right, so let's move on to my number.
I had him at 4, by the way.
OBJ at number 4 for you.
That's because of my surprise number 1.
That's right. All right, my number 2 guy is DeAndre Hopkins, going as the 11th pick in the first round. Currently at wide receiver 2. I think that's properly ranked. I think he's a definite target of mine late first round. He's been over 1,200 receiving yards 3 of the last 4 years, and that's playing with really, really, really bad quarterbacks outside of a couple of games with Watson. He literally has an every other year thing going on with touchdowns right now, but I think that ends this year, and I think he's going to do back-to-back double-digit touchdowns this year, especially if he has a healthy Deshaun Watson. They played in 6.5 games last year. Remember, he didn't start week 1. They, for some reason, went with Tom Savage. And then at halftime, they're like, ha, that was cute.
Yeah.
So then they put in Watson. In those 6.5 games, they combined to hook up for 7 touchdowns and nearly 90 receiving yards a game. Not saying that you're going to average a touchdown per game and nearly 100 yards, because that's Hall of Fame numbers. But, man, they can come close to that, and he's that kind of receiver that can flirt with 12 touchdowns, 1,500 yards as well. So, Nuke can get it done with anyone. He can definitely get it done with Watson. I'm all in on him at number 2.
I also have DeAndre Hopkins at number 2, ahead of Antonio Brown, actually, who I'm sure you're going to talk about next. He's a freak. He's going to do what he does. He finished as the number 1 wide receiver this year. I don't expect anything different except one guy ahead of him. But, I expect – this is my prediction for Deshaun Watson. Ready? It's going to be 27 touchdowns, 17 of those to DeAndre Hopkins, 20 interceptions, and 5 fumbles lost.
Wow, because DJ, as a lot of you probably know, loyal listeners, DJ is anti-Deshaun Watson, but very pro Nuke Hopkins.
Yes, because, if you're anybody besides Brock Osweiler, if you're me or Ben, you can throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins and he can
Yeah.
score some touchdowns. I don't care. The only incompetent person in this world that can't throw touchdowns to DeAndre Hopkins is Brock Osweiler. And who is he playing for now?
Since you actually brought that name up, I wanted to let you know that I actually got caught up on my Dolphins preseason football last night. I watched the game against the Panthers. And, man, every single snap that I watch, Brock Osweiler takes, just a little more of me dies and wants to just become an all-out Vikings fan. Like, I'm close.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It kills me.
I said, and this is still on the quarterback thing, but let's just move on to Josh Allen talking about bad quarterbacks, and I think we both think he's bad. I sent Ben a text the other night in the middle of the game after like his first throw, which just flew over some guy 5 yards ahead of in front of him's head, and I said, "You're a better quarterback than Josh Allen."
Yeah.
And he said, "Thanks for admitting it."
Thanks for finally realizing
I don't
it.
know. Maybe it was one of those be their jokes or be part of the jokes. I don't know. Well, I love inside jokes. Love to be a part of one someday.
Nice. Well done. Well done.
But it's just Josh Allen's so bad. He's going to be the starter. Just watch him. Don't draft him. Just watch him.
Don't
fail.
draft him. Just watch him. It's like Peterman
I
all
mean,
over again.
I shouldn't. It sounds so mean, and people get so upset. Like, oh, you want him to fail? Like you're a piece of shit. But like, you know what? I think he's going to fail, and if he does, and I'm right, so be it. And if I'm wrong, it is what it is. But
We were saying it since day one, and you got to stick with your projections. I mean, he hasn't
Correct.
shown anything to prove us wrong so far. So
hey,
if the
I
time
get to spin
comes-
it when my projections are wrong one way or the other. So
Yeah.
if I think someone's going to be bad, and they're really good, I get mad at myself. I'd rather have them be bad.
Right, and we'll give credit when credit's due. If he ends up making the Pro
Yeah.
Bowl this year, who knows? But,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't see it happening.
No.
Let's do my number one before we get back to your surprise pick here. So obviously you called it Antonio Brown, going as the 6th pick in the first round. That's the first receiver off the board. Honestly, when I looked at my top receivers, I kind of have those top 4. And I look at AB, and he's just way too consistent not to be my number 1 wide receiver. I did the average of his last 5 years. He averages per year 116 receptions, 1,570 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And that's with missing 3 games over the last 2 years. You know that the Steelers are all in this year. Sort of get the feeling that the window may be kind of closing on the big 3 over there. You know they're going to feed the studs. I love Antonio Brown at number 6. I'd actually probably take him at number 5 overall after those top 4 running backs. So, yeah, if I have the 5th pick and it goes like Gurley, Zeke, Johnson, and who am I missing? Bell. Yeah, give me Antonio Brown at number 5.
So I'm just going to say a couple of things on this real quick and be done with it. The only you can't be wrong here.
Right.
DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown. I truly believe that. So don't criticize me for having DeAndre ahead of Antonio Brown. I don't care who you take. Like, either one's right. I just favor DeAndre Hopkins. And this is the reason why. And I love Antonio Brown, but I believe that if Ben Roethlisberger goes down compared to Deshaun Watson goes down, DeAndre Hopkins is going to continue to be a consistent guy who's putting up yards and touchdowns, where Antonio Brown has shown when Roethlisberger is out, and those numbers drop.
They do.
So I'm basing it purely off of that. DeAndre Hopkins just seems like the more consistent wide receiver, a better all-around wide receiver to me in general. He runs the best routes in the league. He can go up and get the ball with anybody in the league. I think he's a better overall wide receiver, and maybe I'm just, again, being a heightist or whatever that is. But I just think DeAndre Hopkins skill-wise is just a little bit better than Antonio Brown. But either way, you can't go wrong, and I would draft either one of them. I just prefer DeAndre Hopkins. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even get mad at you for drafting Odell over those guys. Like, I really don't care. To me, those 3 are interchangeable.
Right. Yeah, you
That's all
can't
I
go
can
wrong with one of those picks. It's literally all personal preference. I just look at that consistency of AB, and I'm like, you just look at his stats, and you'll just draw a drop. You're like, how is he doing that year in and year out? But
Yeah.
So what do you have? Do you have one guy in your top
I have
12
2.
outside of your number 1?
Yeah. So the one we didn't talk about was Josh Gordon. I had him number 11, who you didn't have in your top 12. I know you don't like him and you're all worried about him. I'm super high on him. He's back. May not play week 1. Don't really care. In 2013, I know Mitch Lorenz likes to say, "Oh, guess how many touchdowns he's had in his last 10 games." I mean, you try coming in and playing one game every couple of years, and and getting touchdowns in those games. Like, he had 2 touchdowns, whatever. But in 2013, the last time he did play a full season, he had 1,646 yards. It seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
1,646 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's only 27. He has no wear and tear, and he's going to be just as explosive, if not, because he's not drunk or high. Like,
there's some wear and tear on that liver.
I may be on the liver, but he's recouping that liver right now. I mean, I don't like somebody who doesn't drink, but a football player, as a football player, whatever, it is what it is. Cop out. I think he just kind of. I don't really like quitters. People quit drinking and stuff like that. I'm just not a fan of. But I still think he's going to be a dominant wide receiver, and I'm more than willing to grab him a little bit earlier. Where is he going right here? He's going as
he dropped quite a bit after he failed
4.12. Yeah. I love that. I'm glad he dropped to 4.12. I'll snag the shit out of him in the 4th, 5th round, end of the 4th, and the beginning of the 5th round.
Yeah, it worked for you. In that last episode, we talked a little bit about him because I think I had him ranked 19th, and he was just one of those guys that just kind of slowly worked his way down my rankings. And I think he'll stop at 19. That's probably where I'll keep him. But yeah, I said in the last episode, I don't envision myself targeting him. I'd rather have Landry. You're going to get him a little bit later. He's going to catch a ton of balls. He consistently does it. I just feel a little bit more safer with Landry than Josh Gordon taking him that high. So I get your argument. I just can't get behind it.
Fine, fucker.
All right, the moment we've all been waiting for.
All right, number 1, Mr. Homer talk here. I've got Davante Adams of the Green Bay Packers. Now, hear me out. It does sound Homer, but I do have some good reasons behind it. Because you can't just rule out somebody who's playing with the most gifted quarterback of all time right now in the NFL. So let's listen to it. I'm going to drop some numbers on you. I don't usually do that, but Davante Adams, most touchdowns. I mean, I think you've all heard it. Most touchdowns by a wide receiver in the last 2 years, with 22 touchdowns. He now doesn't have Jordy Nelson there, by the way. So that's more touchdowns to go around for him. And, I know Jimmy Graham came in, whatever. Davante's the one experienced guy there. He spent most of the season last year of his 10 touchdowns with Brett Hundley. That by itself is fucking incredible. Jordy Nelson couldn't get open. Randall Cobb was struggling in general. But the one guy continued to dominate was Davante Adams. And even with Jordy there, and I saw myself tweet this last year because people are arguing me with, or even with Rodgers and Jordy and Davante on the field in the first 5 games, wide receiver or cornerback ones were covering Davante Adams, and announcers were talking about that consistently, but everybody was too dumb to realize it. So he was the number 1 target then, and now he's all by himself. I guess. 2016, Davante Adams finished number 7 with Rodgers, and Jordy finished number 2. Again, I said he doesn't have Jordy there. He finished as wide receiver number 7 with Jordy there, who was Rodgers' main target. Yeah. Jordy's not there anymore, Ben. Jordy isn't there, people. 5 out of the 6 years since 2010 that Rodgers has been healthy, he has had at least 1 wide receiver finish in the top 10. 3 of those 6 years, he's had 2 guys in the top 10. Jordy's gone. And Davante is far and away the most talented wide receiver on this team. A lot of rookies, a lot of young guys. Randall Cobb is going to put up some numbers. Jimmy Graham's older. It's going to be more used in the red zone. But Davante's more of a red zone threat than I think anybody on this team. He beats one-on-one coverage just as good as anyone in the league off the top of the line. He's open constantly, and Rodgers is going to get him the rock. I predict 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. I think that'll get him to wide receiver number 1.
All right, so I like your theories, but I cannot get behind it because I cannot put faith in a person whose favorite part about a taco is the lettuce. Anyone who has that belief, I can't listen to who their number 1 wide receiver is. I've got Adams at number 8. Going as the 7th pick in the 2nd round, wide receiver 6, you're going to love that value. You're going to hop all over that, I'm assuming. Yes. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Based on that ADP, I think that's properly ranked. There's no reason to believe he'd finish outside of the top 10 with Rodgers being Rodgers' primary receiver, right? I mean, I think everyone would believe that. But I swore Adams off after he had that season with no fantasy stands. He had 1 million drops. But man, I'm coming around. It's time to forget. It's time to forgive. He is the guy in Green Bay. And if you look at the Packers, what they're doing this offseason, Rodgers has not talked bad about Adams at all. But man, he almost acts as if every other person outside of Davante Adams is interchangeable at receiver. He's not scared to bad talk anyone. He's calling the receivers' attitudes and effort piss poor. He's making this Kumaro guy look like the second coming of Steve Largent. But Adams has been that consistent force. Like, he's been there. He's not bad-mouthing Adams at all. And I think Adams and Graham are really the only locks that are going to get targets weekly. So, yeah, I think you should have confidence drafting him. I just don't think I'm going to have a chance at him because living in Wisconsin bumps his ADP up from 2.07 to probably like 2.01 or 2.02.
Yep.
So
that's fair. I think I have chances at him.
You're going to get him because you're one of those guys in my league that's going to snag him from me.
I'm not a homer, though. Like, you've drafted with me, though. Like, every single year. I know this comes off as homer, which is fine, but I just was trying to think logically about it to just try to bring myself back to earth. And I'm like, Aaron Rodgers is here, and Davante Adams is that guy who's just going up more and more every year. And, like, if you watch this guy, you see how talented he is. I mean, there's no denying he's going to put up monster numbers. It's just, unless Rodgers is dead, he's going to put up monsters numbers. He's just going to do it.
Yeah.
If he put up the numbers with Hundley, he can a full season with Aaron Rodgers, he could shit on everybody.
Right. He hurt my fantasy heart a couple years ago, and I said I'd never forgive him. But now that he's the man, and it's funny because it takes me back to a podcast we did with Mitchell, who you brought up earlier. We did one with him like a year or two ago. And he brought up the idea of Adams struggling to break away from man coverage, and he was going off someone's strategy or theory. And I don't ever want to hear those words put together in one of our podcasts again because I think that was so wrong because me and you, we were seeing it week in and week out. The dude was shaking people and shaking good cornerbacks and easily getting wide open. So I was glad that you were able to bring that up. You had specific examples as to when he did it. And I just think that, I mean, I don't want to call us experts by any ways, but, I mean, you haven't missed a snap of the Green Bay Packers football in a long time. So you knew what you were talking about with Adams. And I'm not going to go crazy. Like I said, I'm not going to rank him number 1. I'm cool with him at number 8. But I see what you're saying. But, man, OBJ, Julio Jones, Hopkins, AB, like, those are my guys that have to go number 1. It can't be Adams. I'm sorry.
You'll see.
You'll see.
And I'll tell you to say his name.
What's my name?
Yeah.
All right, folks. As always, tweet any questions you'd like answered on the podcast at Loaded Box. Make sure you check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. Latest fantasy rankings that are about to be updated again here really soon. We're going to be doing that. We have our latest blogs on there, our podcast. Our next episode, I believe we're probably going to be talking some tight ends, but we might sneak another one in there because we got a good idea we want to do with a guest.
Sneaking another one in there, tight ends.
I like it. Reminder to get qualified for that OBJ signed mini helmet. Available on iTunes, searching Loaded Box, subscribe, rate, and review. And with that, DJ, send us away.
Bye.